Hello and welcome to the Fast Break pregame show. My name is Aman Kidwai, manager of the UConn blog and the Fast Break newsletter, and I'm joined by our basketball writer, Patrick Martin. This is our first postseason show, and what a time it is. The Huskies are the number one overall seed after winning the Big East tournament. They're in the East region, and we'll have more on that and surrounding storylines later. This show is a production of the Fast Break newsletter, an outlet featuring in-depth reporting, analysis, and a podcast about UConn men's basketball. This show is also a production of 22 Threads, purveyors of fine t-shirts, hoodies, hats, and other gear inspired by the Connecticut culture and lifestyle. They recently launched a new line of Hassan Diara gear that you should all go check out. That's 22threads.com. After beating Xavier, St. John's, and Marquette in the Big East tournament, the Huskies are the number one seed in the East region. They opened the NCAA tournament with 16 seed Stetson in Brooklyn on Friday. Tip-off will be at 2:45 on CBS. Patrick, first of all, how are you feeling about this bracket in the East region? Friendly or
Oh,
fierce?
Aman, fierce. We're talking Sasha
Uh-oh.
fierce. We're talking Zoolander throwing out Magnum fierce. There are landmines up and down the bracket. Since January 1st, UConn has been the best team in the country per Bart Torvik. Iowa State is third, so that's the two seed. Auburn, the number four seed, is the fifth best team. Third seed Illinois, they have defensive issues that we'll get to, is 13th overall thanks to the number one ranked offense. On top of that, those are the first four seeds. It's March. There's upsets. There's Cinderella's lurking around every corner. Sprinkle in a little bit of FAU and San Diego State, two teams that were in the Final Four last year and have veteran squads that are ready for another deep run. And then we're not even talking about like a well coached and well drilled Yale team. Drake, another team that has been around before. Two teams with mismatch potential in 7-footers. Bo Bowie, who we'll get to here in a little bit. But yeah, I mean, when you dig into them, well, they look scary to UConn at first, and I think that was the broader narrative when the bracket first came out. But then when you start to dig into their stylistic and schematic makeup, you start to feel a little bit better because UConn, again, let's not forget, they are so balanced and they have shown all year that they can win in so many different ways. But like, if you're a fan worried about this bracket and you want to play, be a little scout here, yeah, I'll give you guys a couple of things to look out for these first round games. San Diego State has Jaden Ledee. He went from 8 points per game last year to 21 points per game. He's like your favorite Hooper's Hooper. He's one of the more underrated dudes in college, and he really took the leap. And they have like the big physical dudes that you kind of struggled with, a la Villanova sometimes. Auburn has just been on an absolute tear. John I. Broome, Jalen Williams, Chad Baker, Mazzara. Those are three guys, 6'8", 6'7", 6'10", that can absolutely dominate inside. And we've seen Alex Caravan struggle with those types of matchups before. Illinois got Terrence Shannon Jr., probably the best player in the region, I think. And their defense isn't up to snuff, but again, in the same makeup as San Diego State, they got big physical guards, and lead guards take you far in March, as we all know. And then Iowa State switches everything, crazy ball pressure. They could really blow up ball screen movement sets, all the stuff that UConn has done well. They could be a serious threat. So very excited for this crazy bracket. I mean, it's I feel like for us, we always in the regular season we're huge UConn fans and we're sitting there. It's like the meme where we're sitting there and everyone else is at the party dancing, and I'm saying like they don't know that UConn finally won a ranked road game. Now this is time for like the casuals are coming in. We can finally talk to people about UConn. So I'm so thrilled that this is a tough lineup, because that was also the narrative last year that, oh, UConn didn't get to face Kansas and it was such a weak road to get to the Final Four. There will be no such narrative this year if UConn can pull off what it looks like they're ready to do.
So, first of all, to address the commentary about the path last year, that's just gibberish. That's pure copium from other people. you got to win 6 games to win the NCAA tournament. There is no easy path. And that was kind of my point about this year, coming back to current times. Yes, UConn's bracket is tough. I agree. I think that is absolutely the case. I think I'd be more mad about it if I was not so confident in how good of a team UConn is. But look, you got to beat good teams no matter what to win the national championship. And if the haters would have liked to see UConn play Kansas to get there, Kansas needed to beat Arkansas. There's nothing UConn did wrong there by not facing Kansas in the NCAA tournament or anyone tougher in the Final Four or national championship. The path in that respect does not matter because Ken Pom, our dear friend, has also confirmed that your odds really don't change depending on your path. It still really is about, again, winning 6 games. But I will say this does seem wild. Just, all of the highly rated Ken Pom teams all in one bracket, it seems like it doesn't really add up or make sense. I want to be madder about this because it's another clear sign of incompetence from the selection committee. But I think, where I stand and where I think, like from the UConn fan perspective, it's just that it's it's such a good team. There is no path that should strike fear in the hearts of Husky fans. What is some striking a little bit of fear in stores these days is the possibility of some players transferring out. Dan Hurley, pretty much every chance he gets, when asked a question about one of the younger members of his team, after mentioning that that person is good and doing a good job, he will say, I hope this person doesn't get tampered away. I hope coaches aren't doing any tampering. The portal did just open. We've already even seen portal commitments trickling in. Patrick, what do you think? Is there a possibility that some of these younger guys in the team get recruited away? UConn's been pretty good at retention on this front, but what do you think?
He built on yesterday's performance. He came in with a lot of confidence. He's a guy that, like a number of our freshmen, if they wait their turn, there's going to be some turnover from this year's team. But you're looking at, if somebody doesn't tamper him out of our program, all that shit's going on right now. It's crazy. He's a future star. You're looking at a future star at UConn.
Of course, the buzzards are circling, and it's an absolute circus show right now when you see dudes that enter the portal and then one day they're already committed to a new team. What are we doing here? It's the wild, wild west, and someone needs to step in and take care of that. But that's a topic for another day. We're focused on our own house here, and I think all Hurley has to do is show anyone that is possibly getting tampered Samson Johnson highlights, because Samson Johnson was getting all this attention last year as the odd big man out for not playing. Everyone knew his potential, and there were a lot of question marks in how he would perform given the backup role. Would Hurley kind of pull the rug out and give all Donovan Clingan minutes? No, Samson Johnson has been excellent at what he does, and look how that turned out. Of course, money talks, and you never know, but even Solo Ball, who found himself on the short end of the stick of the rotation lately, don't forget he was starting when Steph Castle was out. And I mean, think about all his great plays that he had in the Garden during the Thanksgiving tournament against North Carolina, that putback dunk. He it's very clear he has the talent. Hassan Diarra has just been playing out of his mind, and there's only so many minutes that can go around. As long as you see a path forward and recognize that maybe transfers will come in and you're going to have to battle some transfers, that's all you really want to see at a place like UConn is a path forward. And that's not even mentioning the Jaylin Stewart breakout, which has everyone buzzing right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think what you say about Samson Johnson being an example is great. I think even Donovan Clingan is a really great example, for someone who's maybe a higher level recruit, and Jaylin Stewart, kind of a very similar role and situation in terms of being a backup to a star, but being really poised to do better. And yeah, maybe potentially you could be in more of a starring role. Maybe go transfer to New Mexico, Vance Jackson, and go get all the usage that you want. But If you want to be part of a winner, if you want to be part of a situation and a team that gets the most out of people, Hassan Diarra is another really great example, right? Tristan Newton even is a great example. He could have probably transferred somewhere else where he might get more usage, more of an opportunity to be the man and prove himself in that way. But he chose to stay. I think one of the best things in a slew of great things about Dan Hurley and this program has been their ability to retain people. And Jaylin Stewart's the shining example of it this year. What a breakout we saw from him in the Big East tournament. Really waiting his turn, though, doing it patiently, having the ups and downs that are typical of a freshman, powering through it. We're not seeing any complaints. We're not seeing complaints from him. We're not seeing complaints from the family. We're not seeing anything out in the ether. So I don't think there's a reason to be concerned because all of those guys had a chance to see what they can maybe do at UConn with some time on the court this year. And then they have the future versions of what they can be. So I think, with all of those great examples in front of them, and just the fact that, again, retention has been strong. The only person to leave has been Naheem Aline. And that was for the potential promise of even more playing time, which is what he was understandably looking for. Didn't really get it. But at any rate, it's not just Jaylin Stewart stepping up. Hassan Diarra has been great. Samson Johnson, the aforementioned Samson Johnson, seems to be really gaining confidence as well. Patrick, what are your thoughts on the state of the bench? We saw 20 plus points in 3 straight games. Is that the kind of thing you think can continue for the Huskies in the postseason?
Yeah, for sure. It's potential to be there. I'm not going to go and say that they're going to give you 20 points per game every night out. Because what that bench really brings are a lot of intangibles. It's Samson Johnson's high hedging, the constant pressure at the rim. That's a change of pace from Donovan Klingen's drop coverage and mobile rim protection. Hassan Diarra had 10 assists and 2 turnovers in the Big East tournament, and perhaps more importantly, 8 of 9 from the free throw line. And so those guys are bringing all of the intangibles that are needed when you have a talent as talented a starting five as UConn does. Jaylin Stewart's 17 points in the Big East tournament were great, but even if he didn't have those breakouts, he had the block shot. He had early, to end the regular season. He's been playing great defense. He was brought in because Alex Karaban was getting abused down low by David Joplin. He wasn't brought in at that moment in the Marquette game for his shooting. Against St. John's, he didn't hit any shots. He was just running on the break. So those guys continue to play beyond the box score. And I think that's so important because if there is one kind of like, well, we'll get into that later, but what I've always thought, and this is a personal thing of mine, is like it's fun to see different personalities contribute. Everybody loves the Kempas, the Shabazz, but I also, and I think most fans can agree, there's the cult fandom of like the Donnell Beverleys, the Lasan Chromas. I can go even back further if you want. The guys who do the dirty work, who have like their moment, not just like, are continually making all the headline plays, but they're doing the dirty work. And I think teams are more fun to follow when you have personalities like that off the bench. Samson Johnson's is the strong silent guy. So when you see him start to scream, you get excited. Hassan Diarra, just like one of the more like subtly like funny people out there when you listen to his interviews. So it just adds to the overall moxie of the team. But then when you bring it back to a rotation standpoint, UConn has 3 elite backups at 3 critical positions when you think point guard, center, in that 4 position. Factor in Spencer, Castle, and Newton, all shown they can play off the ball at various times. And then Karaban can go either big or small. It really bolsters a question mark that I think a lot of people had when UConn was just Hassan Diarra and Samson Johnson, as opposed to now you can trot out Jaylin Stewart.
Yeah, just staying confident. I think most important for the freshmen is to stay confident. When you get your name called out there, just play how you play in practice. I mean, he be killing us in practice. My God, he's killed me multiple times in practice, and he's a special player. I want him to replicate what he's doing in practice out in the games, and we're continuing to give him confidence. He was the reason. I'm gonna talk to him after, and that he was the reason why we won this game. Without him, that boost in the first half, we really don't get that lead, and just the key plays he made besides the baskets, the rebounds, the blocks, just being in the correct spot defensively. I mean, he was so special out there, and I hope this is a confidence boost for him to where he continues to get his number called, that he's going to continue to play like that, and I know he can.
What does Hassan Diara bring that you guys, off the bench as a contributor?
Unbelievable. I mean, got to be the biggest spark in college basketball. Coming off the bench, what he does for us defensively, especially, but when he's hitting threes and making plays on the offensive end, he does it all for us, and to be able to rely on our bench like a guy like that is unbelievable.
For me, it's Hassan Diarra, man. It's so awesome what he's doing and the way he's doing it. And he was a question mark going into this season too. You said it was, you looked back at his performance, the fact that he barely played down the stretch for UConn, but he's been huge. He's especially huge, I think, in Big East play. He's a Big East style guard and grinder, but he's really a two-way playmaker. He's active on both ends of the court, and I think his development is right up there with anyone else's in terms of important elements for this team. If you think about the different eras of this season, there's getting through the Castle injury, there's getting through the Klingon injury, and I think Diarra was huge in those moments in kind of an unsung hero way. He saw his usage go up in there, but he was part of the smaller lineups, and I think that was just huge for the Huskies. And then Samson Johnson, I just think that's one of those things where he's starting to get acclimated to the more aggressive play of the Big East. That was huge. Also, I think for him, he's going to have, in my opinion, I'm guessing, a better run once you get out of the Big East, away from those refs, away from those DeJuan Blair type individuals, who will just pound away at you. And I think he's going to have some of those games like he had in the early part of the season. So it's really exciting what you have there from Diarra and Samson Johnson. And then Jaylin Stewart emerging and gaining confidence really just adds to that. I loved what we saw from him in the St. John's game in particular, like you mentioned, making it happen in transition, all of that. And by the way, Diarra and Samson Johnson are fasting right now. They've been fasting since the start of the Big East tournament, most of the month of Ramadan. Very challenging stuff. No food or drink, sun up to sundown. They were breaking fast during the last two games, fasting for the entirety of the Xavier one. Just super, super impressive stuff there for all those guys. Basketball, life, really just everything.
And the last thing I'll say about Jaylin Stewart is his ability to defend at a high level as a freshman is so important. He has the size already and the athleticism. He was getting good serviceable minutes without his shot and with not a lot of confidence on the offensive end. I'm not saying they're going to run him through the Cam Spencer type sets or the Alex Caravan pin downs and everything like that, but you feel comfortable now with the ball in his hands as opposed just to a guy who's out there for the hustle plays and to give Caravan a rest. Now he's just another weapon for Hurley to use off the bench.
Absolutely. But you know what, Patrick? I'll tell you who's a real weapon, and who you really want to have the ball in his hands. That would be Tristan Newton. He's UConn's leading scorer, rebounder, and assister, as he has been for most of the season. Was recently named an All-American by the Associated Press, First Team, and Sporting News. He was snubbed for Big East Player of the Year. I'm ready to say that with all my heart. And but did end up winning Big East Tournament Most Outstanding Player for what he has been up to. First player to have 10 or more assists since 1986 in the Big East Tournament Final. Impressive stuff. We've been seeing it from Tristan Newton, all season really, but does it feel like he's doing it at another level right now when it matters most for UConn?
Yes, because he does it so quietly. He will just put up you look at this. Every day after the game, I'll look at the stat book and say like, oh my god, he had a double double. It's become such a norm, I think, around UConn that we don't even realize he's filling up the stat sheet like that. He almost, I think by like 1 percentage point, averaged 50, 40, 90 in the Big East tournament. He had 24 assists to 4 turnovers. And when UConn was struggling a lot of times, he was the bailout bucket, whether it be a timely assist or the three plays that stood out to me were his clutch three to end the half in Marquette to go up two. The putback dunk against Xavier really was like, okay, now we're on. And then that no look pass he had to cling in was just an example of all the things that Tristan Newton can provide while doing it on this even keel, not phased. Okay, maybe an occasional, phone celebration, but he is the ice to Dan Hurley and Cam Spencer's fire, and it's so important to have that balance when you have guys that run hot like those two do. And it reminds me of the article that you had the interview with Kamani Young where he said leadership, character, and toughness don't all look the same. Not everyone is the rah rah, let's go guys, let's take them down. There are people who have a quiet confidence and are quietly driven, and that is Tristan Newton in a nutshell. He's on pace to be one of only like 5 players to ever put up 500 points, 250 rebounds, and 200 assists in a single season. Not enough has been said. And to address the Big East snub, this is Ben Hansborough, Kemba Walker all over again, who was, if you all remember, Ben Hansborough was named the Big East Player of the Year, Kemba Walker's year in 2011. Obviously, Kemba went on to do Kemba Walker things. And as dumb as that is, I would rather be on this side of the aisle with the All-American than with the All Big East player who is locked in a battle now with Boston College.
Well, yeah, thank you for mentioning that article on a lovely new website called Store Central that everyone should go check out. Yeah, I thought that was incredibly powerful from Kimani Young, what he had to say about Tristan Newton. The thing that it's an amazing amount of humility for a coach to show. Both Kimani Young and Dan Hurley have said that they became better coaches because of working with Tristan Newton, because they're both kind of like aggressive, in your face, like lead charge, kind of guys. They're both, that dog mentality kind of guys. And Hurley has said multiple times that he used to clash with Tristan Newton. Like, why are you so calm? What do you know? What, you don't care? And Kimani Young, I could imagine, had maybe similar thoughts, but what he said was, no, Tristan Newton's just as competitive as anyone. It just looks different, and I think that's so great. And it's such an important lesson for anyone in any phase of life, really, not to rely on first impressions and not to try and judge a book by its cover and all of that stuff. But, it's been really a tremendous arc for Tristan Newton, not just somebody who was unheralded out of high school. His only option is East Carolina. He transfers to UConn. It's not like everything was sunshine and gravy when he came to UConn. There was a ton of criticism around his game. There was a ton of UConn has this hole on its team because of him. You could even say that even winning the national championship did not rid the haters, of that thought that, Tristan Newton was just kind of a hired gun to be on that team. And it was really about the leaders. He comes back this year. He's ready to be a leader. He does it. He just does it. He doesn't really say anything about it. Kind of like I'm thinking about a interview from a certain Big East player saying, I care about this stuff. I want to be player of the year. I want to be the, defensive player of the year, whatever it is. Tristan Newton's not about that stuff. He wanted to come back and win and just prove himself, prove that he's the certain kind of player that he thinks he is. And he's done that. I think he's also, improving his pro potential. He seems to still not be landing in the mock drafts and whatever, again, much to Dan Hurley's dismay and criticism around mock drafting. But Uh, just what a senior year, what an improvement year 4 to year 5 for him, and just what an important piece of this juggernaut team he's really been.
Yeah, I I got nothing else to add, Naman. You nailed it.
Thank you so much, Patrick. All right, well, who's the Tristan Newton of some other teams? Let's talk about some of the potential opponents for UConn on Sunday. With all due respect to the Stetson Hatters, a very proud and worthy program. I think UConn's probably gonna go ahead and win that game against the 16 seed. I don't see too much of a need to go into the real matchups and that kind of thing. However, as we have discussed, the bracket is a tough one, even down to who the 8 and 9 seeds are. Tell us about Northwestern and FAU and what makes those teams tick.
Well, first, I am very, very anxious for those games. And again, no disrespect to our good friends at Stetson, but very, very anxious for those games because UConn has started slow now 4 times in a row. Starting with the Providence season finale and then the 3 games in the Big East tournament. So you can only play with fire for so long. And a good team, a really hot offensive team, can really make you pay. And at some point, the lead is going to be too much to overcome. One of those teams could be Florida Atlantic. John L. Davis and Vlad Golden are both top 100 players in Evan Maya's BPM ratings. They have the number 16th Ken Pom offense. However, they are the 109th Ken Pom defense, which is the 4th worst among tourney teams. They average 82.5 points per game, which is good for 16th. And this is a team that brought everyone back last year. They were a preseason, I think, top 15. And everyone thought that they were going to storm the AAC. Kind of sound familiar. Everyone thought they were going to storm UConn was going to storm the AAC. Had some weird losses to Bryant, Charlotte, but when it really mattered, they got scalps against Texas A&M, Arizona when John L. Davis put up 35. So while they didn't win the AAC tournament, you have to think that this is the last ride of that FAU unit, especially with Dusty May looking elsewhere, and they're gonna get UConn's they will give UConn their best shot, I think, and it'd be great to see old friend Jalen Gaffney, who doesn't start. I think he's only started 17 games this year, but he gives you a solid 25 minutes of production. And yeah, I mean that there's a narrative right there. If you're into March Madness and everything like that. Moving to Northwestern, they've got 4 quad 1 wins. They have injury issues. They lost Ty Berry to an ACL, and Matthew Nicholson was not there for the Big Ten tournament. His status is up in the air. I'm not sure if he's going to play for that round 1 game, but it's all about my Boo first team all 10 and unanimous, 19 points, 3 rebounds, 5 assists per game, 44% from 3, 36 minutes a game. I mean, he's the straw that stirs the drink, and an absolute beast in drop coverage, which will be fascinating to watch because FAU not so good in drop coverage. Vlad Golden is an offensive guru, but doesn't do much defense. Northwestern also has Brooks Barnheiser, like a 6'6" switchy dude who was all defensive team of the Big Ten, and also all third team in general. Those type of guys who can switch everything. They're nightmare fuel for all the movement that UConn has. And they also have Ryan Langbird, the Princeton transfer, who, as you all know, knows a thing or two about upsets with Princeton in the Sweet 16 of last year. I have no idea who is going to win that game. I think it's a fascinating matchup. You have FAU's offense, Northwestern with their balance, and Boo Boo. Does Boo Boo go off? Does John L. Davis go off? Is FAU continue to be inconsistent, or do they pick themselves up? I have no idea who's going to win, but there are tricky problems in both of those games that I think UConn would not be surprised to see UConn losing or at a 1 or 2 possession game at the half between both those teams.
Yeah, definitely two very sneaky good 8-9 teams there. With FAU, like you said, returning so many players from a team that made the Final Four last year, really well coached team. Something you got to be afraid of. Northwestern, I'm personally a little bit less worried about. I think that's more of a one man show and something that I think UConn could tackle. But I'm less of the basketball analyst than you are. What do you think about, who would you rather face between FAU and Northwestern if you're UConn?
I'd rather face Northwestern. Like you said, FAU bringing everybody back. They could say, all right, this is it, let's go. The AAC or whatever. It's hard. It's hard to be consistent. That's why we also need to appreciate UConn's regular season. However, this postseason shakes out, but it's hard to be consistent in the season. There's so much parity. Northwestern, Boo Booey is 6'2". I think a fascinating thing to watch will be, does Steph Castle guard him? Yeah, is he too small and quick? If not, Hassan Diarra, come on down. And even Jonell Davis is 6'2" as well. So I would put my chips on a combination of Diarra and Castle slowing down Boo Booey enough. He would have to pull who was the New Mexico State guy that absolutely torched UConn in
Teddy
2021. Teddy
White,
Teddy Allen. Teddy
Will
Allen.
Allen.
Teddy Allen.
I was going to say Williams.
He will have to,
Definitely wasn't that.
not Ted Williams unless they unthawed him. But it would require that type of performance, and I just don't see UConn letting that happen. So I'd much rather see Northwestern. John L. Davis could also go off for that, but the Vlad Gold, the 7'1", 240 dude, could neutralize Donovan Clingan, and then you have all those other kind of solid big guards to give UConn's problems. I'd much rather see Northwestern.
UConn tips off at 2:45 on CBS. Bill Raftery will be on the call. We'll see you there.
6 games, baby.
Thank you all for watching.